What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Kensei Sensei, and today we're going to be talking about this and mas, and also Ichidan and Godan verbs. Let's get right in. So you may have already heard of this and must before, but you don't really know the differences between the two. Basically, we use either this or must depending on what the sentence is describing. So for this, we add this to any sentence that describes a state of being. A state of being is basically anything that describes the subject that is not an action. So for example, if I say, 僕は kensei, I am kensei, we can add a this to this sentence because this is describing a state of being, not an action. And by adding this, we make this sentence more formal. It is very important to remember that you cannot add this to a sentence that describes an action. So if I say, 僕は学校に行く, 僕は学校に行く, this means I go to school. In this sentence, I am describing an action. I'm saying that I go to school, and therefore I cannot add this to the sentence. So please note that this always comes at the end of a sentence, and it makes a sentence more polite. If you're wondering what this really does or what it really means, you should think of it as a marker that says, this is what I'm going to say. This is my statement. In other words, it is something that confirms the previous statement. So it's like saying, 僕は kensei this. The this is basically saying, 僕は kensei is true. This is right. This is what I'm going to say. But it's not that complicated. All you need to know is that by adding this to a sentence that describes a state of being allows you to make a sentence more formal. Now, as for must, we use must for sentences that describes an action. So back to my previous example. If I say, 僕は学校に行く, I can change this to 僕は学校に行きます. 僕は学校に行きます. And again, we're adding must to the very end of the sentence. However, there's one thing that's very different from attaching this to a sentence and must to a sentence. When we are attaching must to a sentence, we undergo something called conjugation. Conjugation, like I explained in my previous lessons, is a step process that allows you to change a form or a tense of a verb. So for example, if I change go to going in English, then I am conjugating the verb go. And similarly in Japanese, we change the verb in order to change its tense or form. When we're adding must to a sentence, remember, must is only attached to any sentence that describes an action, and therefore we're always conjugating the last verb. If you recall, verbs always come at the end of a sentence in Japanese. So like in my example, 僕は学校に行きます. What we're conjugating here is the verb 行く or to go. We're changing 行く to 行きます. So the question is, how do we conjugate? In order to know how to conjugate, you must know the two different types of verbs in Japanese. One is the Ichidan verbs. We can call this the ru verbs, and also the Godan verbs, which we can call the u verbs. Why do we call the Ichidan verbs ru verbs? That's because these verbs always end with the ru hiragana. This includes verbs like taberu, which is to eat, or shinjiru, which is to believe. As for the Godan verbs, we call these the u verbs because it ends with the u vowel. This includes verbs like kau, which is to buy, or osu, which is to push. Now here's how we add must to these verbs. For Ichidan verbs or ru verbs, all you have to do is drop the ru. So for example, if I want to conjugate taberu, all we have to do is drop the ru, which becomes tabe, and then add mas. So this becomes tabemasu. Same with shinjiru. Shinjiru is also a ru verb, so all you have to do is eliminate the ru and then add mas, shinjimasu. As for Godan verbs or any u verbs, we have to change the u vowel to an i vowel. So a verb like kau, which is a u verb, we change the u vowel to i, which becomes kai, and then we can add mas, kaimasu. Kau becomes kaimasu. How about the verb otosu? Otosu is also a u verb or a Godan verb, and therefore we have to change the u vowel here to the i vowel. oto shi instead of oto su. Oto shi, and then we can add mas to this. Oto shimasu, oto shimasu. So depending on what type of verb is in the sentence, we have to go through different conjugation steps. Now you might ask, why is it Ichidan verbs and Godan verbs? That's a very good question. The dan in Ichidan and Godan verbs refers to different forms that a verb can take when conjugating. So for example, Ichidan verbs or ru verbs can only take one form. What that means is, like I said earlier, all we're doing is dropping the ru. So something like shinjiru is always conjugated to shinji, and then we can add whatever to this verb in order to finish the conjugation. So like shinjimasu, or shinjitai, which is I want to believe, or shinjiyou, which is I shall believe or let's believe, and so forth. So again, the ru verbs or the Ichidan verbs only has one form that it could take, which is that ru verb without the ru. So how about Godan verbs? Godan verbs, on the other hand, can take 5 different forms. Why 5 different forms? That's because depending on the conjugation, we change the vowel to either a, I, u, e, o, which is the 5 vowels in Japanese. So like I said, when we're adding mas, we're changing the u vowel to the I vowel. And that's for the mas conjugation. For other conjugation steps, we add different vowels. So for the verb kau, this can be kawanai, which means I don't buy, kaitai, which is I want to buy, kau, which is just the dictionary form of to buy, kaenai, which is I can't buy, and kao, which means let's buy. So as you can see, conjugations with any u verb or godan verb can take 5 different forms, and that's why it is godan verbs, not ichidan verbs. I hope you now understand the difference between this and mas, and also the conjugation that you take in order to attach mas to a verb. If you have any more questions, make sure to comment down below and I'll try to get to you as soon as possible. Also make sure to check our Discord, which is linked down below. If you have missed any of my previous lessons, I'll leave a playlist right here, and also my previous lesson on mo, wo, and no sentence particles. But until next time, mata ne!
I really do care about the community, and I just want to make it better.